Hey there, good day to you. A US official confirming to NBC News that there are talks underway between the US and Russia in Abu Dhabi, here in the United Arab Emirates. Those talks, according to that US official, between US, Russian, and separately Ukrainian officials behind closed doors in Abu Dhabi. A US Army spokesman saying the talks are going well. There has been an angry reaction from Moscow, the Russian government accusing Europe of leaking information about the talks in order to reach an agreement. That US official says US Army Secretary Dan Driscoll is here in the UAE for those talks. He was in Geneva for the talks there between the Europeans and the Ukrainians. At that meeting, a 28-point plan put together by the Trump administration that was criticized for having very few compromises on the Russian side, that was adapted and changed. Now there is a new plan, and we assume that that is being discussed with the Russians. The Secretary of Ukraine's National Security Council saying we expect to arrange Zelensky.
Okay, so welcome to the video. So within this video, we're reviewing a news segment where they were talking about the United States and Russia meeting, um, trying to secure a peace deal. Of course, dealing with Ukraine, and of course, this is very important because that war has been going on for years now. It's a war that Russia felt that they would win very shortly, but as you can see, it's a very very long war because it's people within Ukraine who are very very prideful, and of course their leader is still leading the same leader that they've already had, and you know it's time for peace within that region to, for everyone that's involved. And there's been several talks as far as peace. I know there's been like ceasefires and a lot of things that have came into play when it comes to the situation. And as I was saying in the previous video, United States, we're either involved or we're either fighting a lot of things globally on all fronts. So this is just another piece of that puzzle. There's a high-ranking commander that's um, there, amongst the peace talks, as they were saying, and we'll have to see exactly what comes of this. And again, this is Trump's first year, and he's already trying to put forth some type of action to kind of bring peace to this region, and just not sweep it under the rug, not really face the issue head on. He's actually trying to do something. So just going to take it back just a little bit and kind of regather some information.
Official between US, Russian, and separately Ukrainian officials behind closed doors in Abu Dhabi. A US Army spokesman saying the talks are going well. There has been an angry reaction from Moscow, the Russian government accusing Europe of leaking information about the talks in order to reach an agreement.
So the Russian government um, within Moscow is um, they're saying that the Europeans are guilty of leaking information as far as them coming together behind the scenes and trying to do a deal in order to get Russia to agree to the deal and stuff like that. Because if their citizens are seeing reports of this or reports of that, they're more likely to have something to say, or it can create some type of backlash critically towards the Russian government. And it's like I was saying, it's time to kind of bring that war between Russia and Ukraine to an end. Um, I do know Russia did take a lot of territory from what was Ukraine, and it's just been a lot of back and forth. A lot of people have lost their lives over this conflict. So you kind of put a lot of stuff in perspective as far as all the bloodshed that has happened, and just other horrible ordeals that's went on in Ukraine that was being reported since the start of that war. So I'm gonna just let the video continue.
That U.S. official says U.S. Army Secretary Dan Driscoll is here.
So it's a U.S. Army Secretary. So I'm sure he's like a spokesperson that speaks, on behalf of military and things like that. So I'm sure he's, well versed in what's going on, especially in this conflict. So hopefully they'll be able to come up with some type of deal, and they'll have something in place to where it'll be solid for all parties involved. Now, as they was reporting, it's about 28 things or so that they had kind of started working out as a framework. But on the Russian side, they were saying that it's more favorable to the U.S. than to Russia. So, that could be a big hindrance as far as getting this thing done, um, especially before the U.S. may, start operations in Venezuela trying to, um, take out, the leader there and continue to prevent the flow of illegal drugs into the United States. I'm gonna let the video finish here.
In the UAE for those talks. He was in Geneva for the talks there between the Europeans and the Ukrainians. At that meeting, a 28-point plan put together by the Trump administration that was criticized for having very few compromises on the Russian side, that was adapted and changed. Now there is a new plan, and we assume that that is being discussed with the Russians. The Secretary of Ukraine's National Security Council saying we expect to arrange Zelensky's visit to the US as soon as possible, suggesting it could happen in November. So, of course, that's by the end of this week to, quote, finalize the last points of the deal. But some of the issues in all this that the Europeans and Ukrainians will have pushed for will have been that Ukraine is allowed to determine its own territory and its security, and that will contradict some of the demands by the Russians. So the question remains, with President Trump's Thanksgiving deadline looming, is there going to be a deal? Hey there, good day to you. A U.S. official confirmed.
Okay, so the Russians say, there's a lot more compromises for the United States and not necessarily for them. And one of the big issues is, they don't really want Ukraine to, pick like territory and stuff like that. Even though, the territory more than likely was already a part of Ukraine. Russia sees it as, we have people within that region, and we want to be able to govern over this region. So a lot of it has to do with like showing power and owning, certain territory, and um, just really defeating their opponent. So we'll see what becomes of this. Again, if you like my content, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. This is Justin Paul. Peace.